An illegitimate child by the boss. The moments of happiness we enjoy take us by surprise. It's not that we enjoy them, it's that they take us over. Ashley Montague. It's been over 25 years since I was last in my hometown. 25 years, 5 months, and 12 days to be exact. I left a broken man at the age of 26. It was the day after I found out that my wife, with whom I had been with for 3 years, was pregnant with their first child. Not mine, but hers, and her boss's. When she told me she was pregnant, I knew right away it wasn't mine, even though she didn't try very hard to hide it. We were young and broke. The economy was tough, so I took a short-term job on a river barge that traveled up and down the Mississippi. It was a lot of money for a young man, but it required me to be gone 6 to 8 weeks. It turned out to be 9. We both decided the separation was worth it, since I would earn more in those 2 months than I had in 4 at my previous job. We were young and in love. We could get by. My wife managed to last about 2 weeks before she started making love to her boss, David Hollister. He owned an insurance firm and she was one of 3 administrative assistants. As it turned out, she was the 3rd one he used. He was also very well connected in our small town, so even when she came face to face with him, he just smirked. "What are you going to do, Debbie? Try to bankrupt me? Sue me? I'm not married. The local judge is my brother-in-law, and you don't have 2 cents to hire a lawyer." He gave her a $1,000 severance package and fired her the next day. By the time I returned to town 2 weeks later, she was working as a waitress at a local diner on the morning shift. When she told me the story, there was so much remorse in her that it was touching. She apologized to herself for 15 minutes and then started insisting that we use my newfound wealth of $2,500 to sue the asshole. "Tom, we can fix this. It didn't mean anything. I was just lonely, blah, blah, blah," she continued incoherently as I stood stoically silent. Her admission that it didn't mean anything alluded to the fact that she had slept with him about 24 times in my absence. I think she was genuinely shocked when she paused, and I laughed bitterly in her face. Turning away, I spent the next hour silently washing a couple loads of laundry, then packed up my things and left for good. Cell phones were a luxury in the late 90s, so she had no real way to track me down. I never saw her again or heard from her. Yes, I was angry and hurt, humiliated and broken. I would have loved to figure out a way to burn both the cheater and the asshole, but as a young man with very little experience, I had no idea how or what to do about it. My parents were dead. I had a sister in Chicago, so no connections kept me in beautiful Hannibal, Missouri. I worked one more barge run, bought a used Ford F-150 pickup, and headed west. Over the next 2 decades, I worked my way up. I ended up working as an accountant for a small company in Denver for 3 years, during which time I earned a degree in finance. Since I was single, or at least living single, I had plenty of time to study and take classes, so I earned my degree in just over 2 years. I had no idea if Debbie would divorce me. I think she did divorce, but I never found out for sure. With a few letters in front of my name and a few dollars in my pocket, I continued westward, this time settling in Bend, Oregon. I didn't know anyone there, but I did some research and it seemed like a great place to reboot. Golf and mountain biking in the summer, skiing in the winter were perfect for me. I was also convinced that there was no serious migration from Hannibal to Bend, so I could really start my life over. I set up store as a small investment broker, and 10 years later, I had 3 junior partners and a couple administrative support staff. I had close to $200K a year, and my world was growing just fine. I made good friends and went on dates as often as I wanted to. Because the experience of Debbie's betrayal still lingered in the back of my mind, I never considered getting married. I never fully told my story when coworkers asked why I wasn't interested in a wife and children. I just shrugged and said something like, "Not for me." Over the years, I did think about Deb from time to time. It was impossible not to think. We dated for 2 years and were married for 3. For most of those 5 years, I thought I was with the woman I would spend the rest of my life with. It was a big shock to me when I found out she had slept with her boss and was carrying his child out of wedlock. I didn't want those painful memories to harden me, so I worked on focusing on the best in the world and doing my best to be a good and generous person to those around me. So even though I'm doing well and leaving the past in the past, I'm now on a Delta flight from Portland to St. Louis and then on a hop-on, hop-off to Hannibal. Why? Well, as it turns out, I have a long-lost uncle on my mom's side who died and left me a small inheritance. Somehow his lawyer tracked me down in Bend. We discussed it over the phone, and while there was an option to just let him manage everything remotely, I figured why not go back to the old homestead one last time. So at the age of 51 and a completely different person, I took a trip down memory lane. I'm a bit of a cheapskate, but since I was to inherit about $40,000, I decided to fly first class. Once settled, I found myself sitting next to a charming young woman who looked to be about 25 years old. Her name was Tabitha, and she was visiting friends in Bend. The trip was a 25th birthday present from her mom. By the time we were over Nebraska, we were talking like old friends. Her mom had been single when Tabitha was born, but married when her daughter was about 2 years old to a teacher at the local high school. Unfortunately, he molested a couple of underage schoolgirls and ended up not just being fired but going to jail. When Tabitha was 12, her mom married again, this time to a local businessman. They lived in a nice house while she went to middle school. Then she went to Missouri State High School. 6 years ago, her mom caught hubby with his secretary, and that ended marriage number 2. At that point, her mom decided to stay single. As we sipped our wine and chatted, she went on to explain that she had gotten her accounting degree and was working in St. Louis. She saw her mom at least once a month on the weekends. It was clear that she loved her mom, but also thought she was a little crazy. Obviously, her mom was not a good judge of men, and her mom's experience didn't help Tabitha learn how to be in a loving and stable relationship. As we talked, I thought there was something in her eyes that intrigued me, but I couldn't figure out what it was, so I just let it pass. She asked me a few questions about my past, and I told her the whole story, except for my early marriage and breakup. I just never wanted to talk about it with anyone, much less a young woman about half my age that I had just met on the airplane. She seemed content with what I was sharing and wasn't too curious. By the time we were approaching Kansas City and going into the last hour of the flight, I also realized that young Tabitha was having some father issues. We'd only had a couple glasses of wine, but she was snuggling up to me as we talked, more than was appropriate, and it was clear she was flirting. When she asked about the lack of a wedding ring, it was with a look like she was asking if I might be interested in her. Frankly, I liked the young woman who was flirting with me. I'm trim and moderately outgoing, but what 25-year-old would be interested in a guy who is old enough to be her father? Right? Tabitha was now openly touching my arm, and she mentioned that she still had a couple days before she had to go back to work. She asked if I'd like some company on the trip to Hannibal. She could surprise her mom and visit her, taking a moment to show me how the old hometown had changed. I could sense a clear love subtext in her suggestion. One of my favorite sayings goes, "I may be a freak, but I'm not stupid." When we landed, I bought Tabitha a ticket from St. Louis to Hannibal. On the flight, I took her seat next to me. There were no first-class seats on this small plane, but the flight was only 40 minutes long. As soon as the plane took off, the lights in the cabin were dimmed. By the time we were in the air, it was late evening and dark. It was at that moment that Tabitha reached up and kissed me. The kiss didn't smolder, but it was hot. She also let her hands roam my body. Tabitha smiled and murmured softly in my ear, "Oh my God, Daddy has a serious problem. He needs help. I'll take good care of you as soon as we land." I took her hand and whispered, "If you continue your bad behavior, I'll have to punish you when we get there, young lady." I felt the heat emanating from her as she whispered back, "I certainly hope so." We landed 20 minutes later. I had rented a very nice VRBO overlooking the Mississippi just outside of town. It was too late to call her mom, and neither of us were in the mood to split up. Tabitha stayed the night at my place, and we decided that she would chat with her mom tomorrow while I was with my lawyer. We both agreed that my meeting with her mom was not on the agenda. Tabitha didn't think her mom would be totally freaked out when she saw her daughter decide to have a quick fling with a man much older than her. But she knew it was best to be discreet. We walked in, and within a minute I had Tabitha pinned against the wall, one hand holding her wrists firmly above her head and the other stroking her body. She broke off the kiss and demanded that I give her time to shower. We'd been on the road for almost 7 hours, so I had to agree that was a good idea. I offered to rub her back, but she gave me an evil grin and told me I needed to be patient while she got ready to make Daddy happy. Who was this young Mahara, and would I be able to survive a night with her? I let her use the bathroom in the master bedroom since it had a deep tub. I showered in the guest bedroom, and it took all the concentration I was capable of. I succeeded, and within a couple minutes I was already lying naked on the double bed, waiting for my babe to join me. Tabitha did not disappoint. She reappeared in dark pink panties and a tank top that reached about mid-belly. She leaned against the door jamb and spoke in her best little girl voice. "Daddy, I've been very, very naughty. For the next 2 hours we made love like it was our last 2 hours on earth. By the time we were done, we seemed to be the most satisfied people on the planet. As I fell asleep with Tabitha in my arms, I knew she probably needed to work out her daddy issues, but as I had said before, ugly and stupid are not the same thing. I had hoped this wonderful young woman would have a wonderful life, but right now I was beyond happy. I was glad I had given as much as I had gotten. We woke up and made love in the shower before getting dressed and going to breakfast. It was Saturday, and she knew her mom wouldn't be at work, so she decided to call her after breakfast. Eric Hodges, the lawyer representing my uncle's estate, had agreed to meet with me Saturday at 10 a.m. since our case would only take about an hour, and he would be paid $5,000 to close the estate. Tabitha and I agreed to meet later for drinks and dinner. She informed her mom that she was going to meet her boyfriend, but didn't give her any indication of our situation. She named me a restaurant where we could meet and suggested I try and get a reservation as it would be crowded. We would then return home for the night, and in the morning I would head back to the airport and she would continue to visit her mom. I told her I would buy her a ticket back to St. Louis, but she thought Mom would want to take Monday off and drive her home. We had a plan. As we were leaving, Tabitha reached up and kissed me gently on the lips. "I can't wait to see you tonight, Daddy," she whispered. Damn it, I thought. It's a good thing it was just for the weekend, or I might never get back to Bend. I used the app to find Hodges' office. It was in the center of the shopping restaurant district downtown. I found a parking spot right around the corner and walked into his office at 10 a.m. sharp. He was waiting for me, all beaming smiles and handshakes. We chatted about life for a few short minutes. I told him I had lived here many years ago when he inquired about my family's history. I didn't go into any details about my past beyond what was necessary. When we got down to business, it turned out to be relatively simple. My uncle's will allowed us to avoid many formalities. Hodges took my driver's license and made a few copies for his file cabinet. Then he read the will aloud. When we completed our business, he handed me a check in the amount of $40,765. After one or two last courtesies, I walked out the door and headed back to my car. As I rounded the corner, I saw Tabitha a block away with an older woman who must have been her mother. They were talking and giggling, not paying attention to anyone around them, so they didn't notice me. I froze. I was looking at my ex-wife, Debbie. I hadn't seen her in 25 years, and she looked older, but I'd recognize her anywhere. Suddenly, it came to me why Tabitha's eyes caught my attention. They looked like her mother's eyes. They crossed the street about half a block away from me, still unaware of my presence, and entered a clothing boutique. I made love to my ex-wife's daughter. All the emotions from years ago came rushing over me. I was covered in cold sweat, and my hands were shaking. The fool who had betrayed my deepest love, who had robbed me of the joy of living together with a true partner, was in the clothing store across the street, completely unaware of my presence. The pain was intense. And suddenly, out of the blue, I started laughing quietly. I remembered all the times I'd puzzled over how to burn that cheater. A year after landing in Bend, I decided to forget about it. I knew I'd never get a chance to balance the scales. Whatever happened to the cheating fool would happen without me. I wasn't going to let her betrayal completely destroy me. I might be deeply hurt, but I'd be okay, even if I had to give up any idea of getting even. The more I thought about it, the more I laughed. A few people on the street were probably wondering what was so damn funny. As I leaned against my car, catching my breath, chuckling, I realized that my laughter wasn't from relief. It was sinister. It had come to my attention that I wasn't going to be chivalrous or kind to Debbie. Yes, previously I had no intention of waking sleeping dogs. But now I was going to savor the situation. Perhaps a more mature man would have reacted differently. A really nice guy would probably have decided that enough water had passed and put the past in the past. I didn't. I realized I wanted some revenge, and this was my moment. I didn't want to hurt Tabitha in the process, but it probably couldn't be avoided. I would try not to be cruel to her. It wasn't her fault in the slightest. However, I was going to enjoy inflicting a little pain on my ex. I crossed the street and waited about 4 houses away from the clothing store. When they came out, I headed towards them. The next 5 minutes would never make it into a Hallmark movie, but my God, it was fun. "Tabitha! Hey, Tabitha!" I called out, waving my hand. I saw her look up a little embarrassed. We agreed that I didn't need to meet her mom. There was a mixture of surprise and slight concern on her face. At first, Debbie looked at me the way anyone would look at a stranger who was clearly a friend of her daughter's. When I, smiling, cut the gap, the curiosity in Debbie's eyes was replaced with confusion, recognition, and shock, all very quickly. Her hand flew up to her mouth as she exclaimed, "Oh my God! Tom?" Now it was Tabitha's turn to be embarrassed. "Mom, do you know him?" Before she could intervene, I spoke up. "Hi, Debbie. Long time no see. Oh, that was so nice." "Tom, what are you doing here? I mean, why are you here and how do you know my daughter?" "Mom, do you know Tom? Tom, do you know my mom? How is that possible? What the hell is going on?" They were both puzzled. "Well, ladies, let me try to explain. Tabitha, I'll start with you. Until 5 minutes ago, I had no idea that my cheating, lying ex-wife was your mom. We didn't discuss it last night on the airplane, but I was married here many, many years ago. Debbie, please stop me if you want to add anything." "No?" "Okay, I'll continue. You see, Tabitha, your mom was my first and only true love. We were young and broke, but we were in love. Trying to make ends meet, I got a job on a river barge and was gone for about 9 weeks. Before I left, we agreed that it would be hard, but we were in love with each other and we would make it work. Every day on that barge for 2 months, all I could think about was my Debbie and how I was going to get back to her. I was so excited when I got my paycheck and headed home. We could truly begin our life together. Imagine my surprise when my loving, caring wife, who had pledged her loyalty to me, told me she was pregnant with a child out of wedlock. As we talked, I realized that she had only waited about 2 weeks or so before sleeping with her boss, your daddy, David Hollister. At those words, both women gasped. "Oops," I continued. "Debbie, you never told your daughter about her real father? Well, that's a shame. Maybe that's why she has daddy issues, which definitely show up when she makes love." I thought Debbie was gonna faint. "Anyway, baby girl, your mommy ruined me and our future in a matter of weeks by making love to her boss. In the end, he gave her $1,000 to leave and keep her mouth shut, which she obviously didn't do when she was with her lover. I left town emotionally bankrupt, and it took me almost 5 years to get back on my feet and start rebuilding my life. So, that should answer your question. Now, Debbie, I'll answer it for you. I came back to town because I had an uncle who died and left me a small inheritance. I decided to come back and see my hometown one last time, finalizing my inheritance. I had no idea you still lived here, and I had no intention of trying to find you. Why would I want to reunite with a selfish fool who didn't give a damn about me or my love? Anyway, on the airplane, I sat next to a beautiful young woman who told me her name was Tabitha. We chatted over a few glasses of wine and enjoyed getting to know each other. She never told me your name, and I never had any idea who her mother was. However, like I said, we had a great time and really enjoyed each other. Again, I think part of it may have to do with the fact that she is still looking for a loving daddy. So, in the evening we flew to Hannibal and she joined me for a night of amazing lovemaking. I mean, it was really epic. I don't remember making love with such brilliance and enthusiasm. I'm not sure how many times we did it, but at least 8. By the way, do you know how much your little girl loves to be spanked and serviced? Tabitha was crimson red and now clearly pissed off. Debbie was mortified and tears were streaming down her cheeks. I was almost done. I looked back at Tabitha. Tabitha, I'm sorry you're hurt and angry at this moment, and I don't blame you. But you have no idea what real pain is. Turns out I betrayed you a little bit. I could have seen your cheating mom, turned around and walked away, but I'm just not that nice a guy, and a lot of that is due to that fool you call a mom. Just know that I will never talk about this again, and I harbor no animosity towards you. I hope you have a good life, and if you ever find yourself in Bend needing a friend, I'll be there for you. No strings attached. You are a fine young woman, and I'm sorry you got caught up in this. Nevertheless, I would love to have dinner with you this evening, expecting nothing physical. Tabitha's face softened a little. Debbie, your tears and pain are working therapeutically on me. I assumed I'd never get a chance to show you how much pain you hurt me. In a million years, I couldn't have made a plan like this. But now that I'm here, I want you to realize I can see the terror in your eyes. Now you have some understanding of what you've done to me. I can see it in your face, and I know it hurts like hell. Your little girl is a wonderful young woman, and she's a hell of a woman to love. Goodbye, cheater. I turned and walked away, feeling the weight of the world fall off my shoulders as I heard Debbie sobbing. Later that day, my phone rang. Daddy, will you still meet me for dinner? I have been very naughty, yelling at my cheating mother, and I need to be punished. The end.